On. ये no number.
Tensions between India and Pakistan are escalating. Pakistan is vowing revenge and retaliation for this act of war. There are some reports that they are dispatching troops to the border with India, but it's hard to know exactly what's going on. And it seems even in our own government, we don't have a full picture of how far this could go or exactly what has happened. But for those that are not familiar, not that long ago, about 2 weeks ago, there was a terror attack where jihadis went and executed several Hindus in the disputed territories in Kashmir. This has led to an escalation which many fear could bring about nuclear conflict. Now, Pakistan and India both have around 170 nuclear weapons. They are not particularly large, but they are still nuclear weapons and can cause massive damage. It does seem that this conflict is largely isolated between these two groups. However, many are concerned that China will try to intervene in some way to exacerbate the problem and exploit it. And I think it's fair to say many other nations may want to do so as well, because it will have a massive impact on the region, on global trade, and it can be exploited. Now, we've got a lot to break down. Of course, the question of whether or not a nuclear war is inevitable. This from The Spectator this morning. But first, let me give you the quick facts and details that we currently have. Al Jazeera reporting. Pakistan has accused India of committing a blatant act of war and promised retaliation after New Delhi launched deadly missile attacks along their contested border in disputed Kashmir, in the worst eruption of violence between the nuclear-armed neighbors in 2 decades. In an address before Pakistan's parliament on Wednesday, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif denounced as cowardly the attack carried out by India, as he repeated Islamabad's assertion it had nothing to do with the April 22nd Pahalgam attack in the Indian-administered Kashmir region. He said Pakistan's response to the attack, which included the downing of Indian fighter jets, proved that the country was prepared to knock enemy planes off into the sea. Before his address, Sharif presided over a National Security Committee meeting during which Pakistani officials condemned the illegal acts of India, describing them as blatant violations of Pakistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Quote, the deliberate targeting of civilians, including innocent women and children, by the Indian military constitutes a heinous and shameful crime that is in violation of all norms of human behavior and the provisions of international law. Earlier, Defense Minister Khawaja Muhammad Asif also declared that Islamabad won't take long to settle the score and said military operations were already underway. India launched a huge military bombardment overnight called Operation Sindoor, striking 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir and killing at least 26 people. In response, Pakistan said it struck Indian military targets and claimed to have shot down several warplanes, resulting in at least 10 deaths. The latest number that we had yesterday was that 5 Indian fighters were shot down. Residents of Muzaffarabad, the capital of Pakistan's administered Kashmir, said they fled their homes and ran to surrounding hills as India launched air attacks on part of the city. The whole house moved. Everyone got scared. We all evacuated, took our kids, and went up into the hills. Mohammed Sher Mir, 46, told the Reuters news agency. Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said on Wednesday that New Delhi carried out the attacks after its intelligence monitoring showed that further attacks against India were impending. Now, I believe I have the, let me see if I can find this article. I've got one of them pulled up. This is not this. Here we go. From Rare. Hindus stripped and executed in Kashmir because they weren't Muslim. There is actually video of this, my friends, considering the graphic nature of the video. I'm not going to be playing it for you because it does show the aftermath of this terror attack, but I will read the reporting, which backs up the claims. They say, on April 22nd, 2025, the meadows of Pahalgam, Kashmir were stained with blood in one of the most barbaric anti-Hindu massacres in recent memory. At least 27 Hindu tourists, men, women, honeymooners, were slaughtered in cold blood by Islamic terrorists for the crime of not being Muslim. Eyewitnesses recount a harrowing scene. Attackers stopped vehicles, demanded ID cards, and then ordered the victims to strip to confirm their religion. Once identified as Hindu, they were executed on the spot. The killers weren't anonymous gunmen. They were jihadis operating under code names. Musa, Yunus, and Asif later identified as Asif Shak, Suleiman Shah, and Abu Tallah. All three were operatives of the Resistance Front, a proxy for Pakistan-based terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba. Probably pronouncing these things wrong. Disguised in Indian Army fatigues, they used deception to stop vehicles, demand ID cards, and then ordered victims to recite the Kalma, Islam's declaration of faith. Some were checked for circumcision. Those who failed these Islamic tests were summarily executed. A newlywed couple on their honeymoon was among the victims. The grieving widow was seen in a viral photo sitting beside her husband's lifeless body, his only offense being born Hindu in a land where Muslims seek to erase all traces of non-Muslim life. This was not a random terror attack. It was a targeted ritualistic slaughter, a continuation of the jihad that has plagued Kashmir for decades. The question, my friends, that everybody is wondering, and I know many people are saying it's not going to happen, it's clickbait, it's not real. Spectator, is nuclear war between India and Pakistan inevitable? Let's just say this. It's possible. I don't know. Okay? All I can do for you guys is tell you they've got how to survive a nuclear war articles popping up. They have pro-India side saying they fear that Pakistan will use low-yield nuclear weapons. There was a study in 2019 that we covered last night suggesting that both sides are going to get hot. They are going to escalate by any means. That Pakistan will send troops. India will respond by sending in troops. Pakistan will retaliate, fearing a conventional defeat, and launch nukes to decimate Indian forces. I don't know. And so what I can tell you is the narrative emerging right now is this question of a potential nuclear conflict. Let's check our optimism bias and our normalcy bias. Normalcy bias, of course, things are the way they are. They're not going to change. But they could. We don't know. Sometimes major events do happen. This is a kickoff of something. However, considering the conflicts we've seen in the past, they've not escalated to any extreme degree. In 1999, this was the last major conflict, though there have been some skirmishes. 1998, Pakistan acquired nuclear weapons. However, now that both sides have around 170 nuclear warheads, there is a fear this could escalate. Optimism bias. We assume the best will work out. It can't possibly get that bad. Listen, I do not see personally, again, with my limited knowledge on the region, I do not see how this expands beyond India and Pakistan, to be completely honest. Even if they start bombing each other, I don't see this as a greater cause for war. This is a disputed territory in Kashmir. China, of course, wants to lay claim to some of it. But I don't see China deciding to intervene because of the fight between India and Pakistan. The possibility exists, although I think very unlikely. The Spectator writes, yesterday evening, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi authorized missile strikes on jihadi training camps located in Pakistan's East Punjab and Pakistani Kashmir. It is retaliation for the attack on Hindu tourists allegedly carried out by the Pakistani jihadi groups Lashkar-e-Taiba. I want to stress, that's not what India is saying. India is saying they struck these targets because those targets were planning more attacks. They're going to say, does this mean an all-out war with two nuclear powers is inevitable? Not necessarily. Since Indian partition, the perennial casus belli in the subcontinent, there have been three major wars, 47, 65, and 99. A fourth, the Kargil War in 99, is better characterized as a mini-war, which followed Islamist militant and regular army infiltration of high-altitude mountains in Indian-administered Kashmir. However, smaller military border clashes have been constant. Fighting over the Siachen Glacier has been continuous since 1984. Artillery exchanges also occurred in 2016 and 19. This last clash followed India's revocation of Article 370, which had previously given Kashmir semi-autonomous status. Kashmir is now a normal Indian state. Compared to these engagements, where will the current clash land? Thus far, India has made it clear that the missile attacks have not targeted Pakistan's military. They have been described as focused, measured, and non-escalatory in nature. Modi does not want a full-scale war, but he does want Pakistan to suppress its embedded terror groups. How will Pakistan respond? Thus far, Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has promised the heinous act of aggression will not go unpunished. Beset with economic and political problems, it is doubtful that Sharif, whose army is hugely outgunned by India, would welcome a full-scale war. This would mean that Pakistan must back down. But the response from Pakistan is that India targeted civilians. India says they targeted terrorists. Pakistan says civilians. They say, however, the decision may not be his. Historically, the head of Pakistan, the Pakistan army, has always been the power behind elected politicians. Frequently elected prime ministers are removed from power by the army, not the ballot box. The last politician to be deposed in a constitutional coup orchestrated by the army was Imran Khan in 2022. Khan, the most popular politician in Pakistan history, was arrested in 2023. He still resides in prison on trumped-up charges of corruption. The problem faced by Shehbaz Sharif and his ever-powerful older brother and long-serving former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is that the man chosen to head the army, General Asim Munir, because of his hardline stance on internal military and civil unrest, as well as antipathy toward Imran Khan, is a religious zealot who hates India. Munir's father, an imam, and family had to flee the Punjab during India's partition because of sectarian Hindu violence. General Asim Munir is a loose cannon. The question is, can the Sharifs control him? Honestly, I got no idea. We do have some videos for those that may not have seen it. This is one of the initial videos that emerged. This is apparently the Indian strike on Pakistan. We have this video from Visegrad. First video of Indian missiles striking Pakistan. This video, you can't really see much, it's only a few seconds, but you can see off to the side of the frame the missiles striking. We also have this first video of a Tayyaba mosque in Murdki, pronouncing that wrong. Pakistan was struck by Indian missiles.
ये no number.
It's hard to know where this goes next. Pakistan is burning. India launched Operation Sindoor. Now, if these videos are true and correct, as reported, India's strikes did hit civilian areas. Now, they say in one of these locations, I believe it was a mosque. They say the missile struck a mosque in Bahawalpur belonging to Maulana Masood Azhar. He's the founder and leader of the Islamist terrorist organization Jaish-e-Mohammed, which is mainly focused on attacks in Indian Kashmir. Pakistan is considering this an attack on civilian targets, and you can see that these missiles did land in civilian areas. Now, I'm not saying that means they're not terror organizations planning attacks. I'm saying they're obviously working out of civilian areas. Sources told ANI that the operation involved careful mobilization of troops and assets across all three service branches, Army, Navy, and Air Force, using special precision munitions to strike terror infrastructure from where the attacks against India were being planned and directed. Sites targeted in Operation Sindoor. We can see that these are in Pakistan. It's not just in the disputed territories. Quote, our actions have been focused, measured, and non-escalatory in nature, the Ministry of Defense stated, emphasizing that no Pakistani military facilities were targeted, demonstrating India's strategic restraint in target selection and execution. Now, I do think it's a fair assessment. We don't know exactly what will happen, but it is likely that Pakistan, I would say it's probable, they do not want an escalation of this into a full-scale war. So they will try to avoid that. But there is still the challenge of India struck targets in Pakistan. The Guardian reports many in the U.S. and Western Europe think Third World War likely within 5 to 10 years. The question that I asked, and this story is from yesterday. The question that I asked the other day was, these conflicts that are erupting all over the world seem to be a lot worse than we're used to. But is this just the natural state of the world? Is it an escalation? Is the media highlighting these things? These are the questions that we seek answers to. If this is just mass media, and we normally don't hear about these things, and I mean normally as in you go back before the internet and social media, would we really be talking about every little escalation and minor conflict? Maybe not. This would be a blip on the nightly news. In fact, Fox isn't really covering it all that much, a little bit. I kind of feel differently. Israel, of course, has been in conflict for a long time, but right now you've got the Israel-Hamas war. Israel saying they're going to flatten Gaza. They're going to take it over. They're fighting Lebanon. They're fighting Iran. And they're fighting the Houthi rebels in Yemen. You've now got conflict erupting between India and Pakistan, which some fear could lead to nuclear escalation. Russia is launching ballistic missiles on Kiev, I believe, once again. And China, of course, is waiting for the moment to strike Taiwan, constantly circling the island, flying overhead. It may be. This is the state of the world. Constantly dancing on the razor's edge. Or an ever-increasing amount of international conflicts will bring us to a world war, not because... I stress this. My friends, we all know the saying, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. But just because it happened historically doesn't mean it must happen the same way. So let me stress, World War I, largely it was European conflict. It was the powers of the world fighting each other. And, you know, I don't know, you had empires fighting empires. You had anger over territorial disputes and debts, etc. World War II, we all pretty much know a lot more about. However, World War II is interesting in that North Africa and Asia were heavily involved. Now, a lot of people need to understand, Germany and Japan, their battlefronts never intersected. And we call them the Axis powers. I mean, I guess. But Hitler was in Germany. Japan was in Asia, sweeping across Southeast Asia. It was not the same. Now, you can. A lot of people are looking at this saying, yeah, but what's the catalyst for World War III going to be? There doesn't need to be one. World War III can emerge simply because too many international conflicts have erupted all at once. So let's put it this way. You've got war in Russia and Ukraine. You've got war with Israel in the Middle East. You've got the bubbling up of conflict with China. They're already laying siege to ships in the South China Sea. And they're claiming it all. They're sinking Vietnamese fishing vessels, building military bases, and they want Taiwan. So let's say there is no great catalyst. It is just a bunch of conflicts erupt all at once. Well, the U.S. is going to be aligned with one group over another. Ukraine, maybe India, Israel. Russia, China, Iran are going to align with other nations. And thus, there's no single catalyst. We just find ourselves on multiple battlefronts ever escalating. It may just be emerging this way. Of course, the question then is, right now, will India, Pakistan go nuclear? I don't know. I don't know why it would. I know that there was this study, and they said that basically what happens is Pakistan's not going to tolerate Indian strikes in its territory. It's threatening its sovereignty and, to be honest, bruising its ego. Is Pakistan really going to allow India to bomb its territory? There's got to be some kind of reaction to that to say, don't do this. If Pakistan's saying we have nothing to do with these terror attacks, India is saying it's your fault, deal with it, we're striking the terrorists. Pakistan's saying you're attacking our civilians. And now there are reports that Pakistan is deploying troops to the border. If India retaliates or sends troops to the borders and it escalates, the study says that India will move troops in, Pakistan will then respond, India will start crushing Pakistani troops, and then Pakistan will say, fine, fire some nukes. I hope not. I think it's important to understand that the weapons that Pakistan and India have are lower yield than what we expect from the biggest of the world powers. Okay? The U.S. and Russia have nukes that can wipe out basically all of New York, or at least all of Manhattan Island, stretching into Brooklyn, Queens, Jersey. The bombs that India and Pakistan have, much, much smaller, much, much smaller. So I suppose we can only hope that it doesn't escalate, but not much else we can do other than that. Smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Stay tuned. More segments coming up, and we will see you all throughout the day.